In this video, we'll prepare a cash lineup on FanDuel for the Thursday Thanksgiving slate. We hope you're thankful for this lineup, assuming it's not a turkey. It's all coming up next. Hello, everyone. I'm Eric Lay.
And I'm Gary Kurtzman, and we are the Fantasy Football Consultants.
Gary, it is so nice to have you on the show again, and especially here in Thanksgiving week when we just crossed the 10,000 subscriber level. Can you believe it? Remember when we started this show 5 years ago saying, will we ever get more than 100 people to watch our show?
I tell you, I do remember that. And Eric, I can't tell you how gratifying this is. I love the fact that we built something lasting. All thanks on this Thanksgiving Day weekend. Got to go to the subs, got to go to the subscribers. It goes all out to you guys. Many, many more than 10,000 of you are watching this show, but 10,000 care enough or regular enough to hit that subscriber button. Big thanks on this Thanksgiving Day weekend to you guys.
And I want to thank the people that go above and beyond by leaving comments, especially the supportive comments. In fact, if you have an opinion of the show that's positive that you've liked over the years, or why you like the show, why you keep coming back, put it in the comment section. We really appreciate reading those. But I want to give a shout out to the 5 people who responded to our call at the beginning of the year to regularly provide analysis in the comment section about the main slate for almost all the videos. Those 5 people are Dave, Rocky, Medic, KTL Channel, and Steven. It's really important that each of you put in the comment section your FanDuel username, and we can make sure we get you into a free to enter contest. And that'll be coming up soon. More details to follow. Gary, let's get into the studio. All right, we have 3 games on the Thursday Thanksgiving slate for week 12. We've got one game, which is Buffalo and Detroit. That's by far the highest scoring game at 52 over under. The other 2 games, New York and Dallas and New England and Minnesota, are both approximately 43 over unders. So Gary, how do we want to start this cash lineup?
Well, Eric, as typical, we always start with the running backs because we tell our viewers there's the strongest correlation between the payment, the price that you make with running backs and the performance that you get versus any other position. So if you're going to pay some dollars, you got to do it with running back. And Eric, I'm about to spend us some money because I want the man at the top of that list. I want Saquon Barkley, $8,800. Now, I know what you're thinking. Gary, you're going hog wild. $8,800 starting us off. Man, your handcuffs, man. What are we going to do with it? Well, I am here to tell you $8,800 is a value for Saquon Barkley. First of all, in general, on average, FanDuel pricing should be 20% higher than DraftKings pricing because, of course, you get a 20% higher budget. DraftKings pricing values him at $8,000. You would expect Saquon Barkley to cost $9,600, but we get him for $88,000. I love the value there. But Eric, come on, let's face it. Why do you get Saquon Barkley? Because he's damn good. Top 5 running back all season, consistent as gravity if you don't count the most recent game. Other than that, he had gotten double digits in every single game this NFL season. Not only that, Eric, but he goes against the Dallas Cowboys and their 26th ranked rush defense. Now, I know what you're thinking. Gary, that's great, but by the second half, the Giants are going to be down. They're going to pass. They can't run. What are you thinking? I got you covered on that too because Saquon and his 5 targets per game, that's more than like half the wide receivers in the league, for crying out loud. Will probably have more than that given the implied game strip for this game. Eric, Saquon Barkley's got you covered every which way but loose. He's my guy.
Exactly. He may get more targets because of Wan'Dale Robinson going down as they continue to get hit at the wide receivers with more injuries than you can ever imagine. All right, so I like that, but I'm going to choose to save a little money off that at nearly $2,000 less, which is a big deal on FanDuel, $2,000. In an equally great matchup, in fact, even a better matchup, is Devin Singletary. He is a massive 10-point favorite, implied total of 31. and he faces the Detroit Lions, who in general this year, not counting last week, has not been able to stop anybody, especially on the ground. So, quick lesson about Devin Singletary. He is especially more dangerous when the Bills are ahead. So, yes, the fact that he's 10-point favorites is good. But I also want to focus about the fact of what's been going on with Josh Allen. In the last 2 weeks, since he's had coming back from his elbow injury, he hasn't run the ball as much. And the beneficiary of that has been Singletary, especially around the goal line. As you see, he's picked up some rushing touchdowns in the previous weeks where he had very few before that. At only $6,900, given his game script, given his role, I'm a big fan of Singletary on Thanksgiving.
Well, and Eric, the algorithm has not caught up with the Zach Moss for Nyheim Hines trade. That really helped Devin Singletary. Now, he's going to lose a little bit on the targets, as you see with this chart, but that's okay because the vast majority of his touches are going to be carries. And what you want to make sure is that when the Bills get to the goal line with the incredibly high over-under, the incredibly high spread, that the Bills will be getting to the goal line. Without Zach Moss, Devin Singletary is the guy. That's why he's been getting the rushing touchdowns in the past couple of games. That's why his fantasy points have been better over these past 2 games than in every other game played, with the exception of the one against Miami, where he gets 15 to 17 points a game. That's what you can expect from Devin Singletary going forward. Maybe even more now, just given the incredible mismatch and giving the high implied total. Devin Singletary is a top 10 running back in football now without Zach Moss vulturing touchdowns. I just don't think that FanDuel's algorithm has caught up to that yet, Eric.
All right, so we're going to take advantage. Okay, we sort of spent some money at running back. What are we going to do at wide receiver?
Well, Garrett, we talked about the high implied total. You have got to double or even triple dip with the Buffalo Bills in this week because, my goodness gracious, they are going to score a lot of points. Now, you're looking at that and you're saying, whoa, Stephon Diggs, I love me that guy, my top 2, top 3 wide receiver in all of football. That's not the bill that I'm targeting, Eric. The bill that I'm targeting is a much bigger value, but will have nearly as big a slice of the pie, and that's Gabe Davis. I love Gabe Davis for so many reasons that I can hardly even count because I don't want to bore the viewer, but I will say this much. You like speedsters against the Lions. We've seen this time and time again. Their cornerbacks, they just can't keep up. And the beauty of it is that Gabe Davis gets 7 or 8 targets a game. He's relatively consistent that way. Now, the question is, he's volatile. Some games he hits on 3 or 4 of those targets, and it's wonderful when he gets over 100 yards. He gets a touchdown or 2, and that's great. And then sometimes he doesn't hit on the targets. Eric, it's predictable. It's predictable. Every single time that Gabe Davis faces a bottom 10 pass defense, we're talking Rams, we're talking Steelers, we're talking Chiefs, we're talking Vikings, bang, double-digit fantasy points. Gonna have, bang, just want to do it again. Gonna happen in this game too, Eric, with Detroit. And I tell you, if I only have to pay $7,200 to get the kind of performance I expect from Gabe Davis, I'm going to do that all day long.
All right. So with Gabe Davis, I am going to get right below him at only $500 less. I am going to pick up Jacoby Myers. Well, folks, the one thing you can count on Jacoby Myers is targets. He is the #1 targeted wide receiver on the New England Patriots. But I want you to look at something because you might go, but Eric, I'm not that impressed with his last 2 weeks. Look at the games, the teams he's played in the last 3 weeks. He's faced the New York Jets twice and the Indianapolis Colts. Those are all tough pass defenses. Yet this week, who does he face? He faces the Minnesota Vikings, an unbelievably great pass defense to face. Now, we all know that New England has been struggling to put up points lately, but I think given the defense that they're going against this week, they will score more points on Thanksgiving, and Myers will be the beneficiary, Gary.
Yeah, and what I love about Myers is He is top 10 in the NFL in percentage of air yards, top 10 in the NFL in percentage of red zone targets. So if you want a guy who can bust off long plays, he's your guy. If you want a guy who's got the best chance of scoring a touchdown, he's your guy. I mean, if you're going to be investing in the New England Patriots, especially obviously in their passing, it literally has to be Jacoby Myers.
Yeah, what do we need to do to get Mac Jones and company to get us more of what we saw from Myers at the beginning of the season? I'm hoping it's partially on the defenses. Those defenses, as you can see, were weaker. They're more in line with the Minnesota Vikings.
Yeah, exactly. This is going to be a good opportunity for him.
All right. So I got to tell you, Gary, as we've prepared this lineup, we realize FanDuel really put the screws on us, right? Their pricing is really high, and it's difficult to put a quality lineup together this week. You got to find some values out there. And one of the values that I think we can expose, look how far I'm going down. This is, Gary, this is a zone that is pretty scary. You'll see some people here that you don't want any part of. But at $5,400, give me a little Richie James Jr.
Say what?
Yes, exactly. Like, what? I said a little, as in he's been providing a little. You go, what's up with this little performance? And he faces the number one ranked Cowboy pass defense. What do we got cooking here? Okay, so the big news is Rondell Robinson is out with an ACL injury, torn ACL. He's their slot receiver. He's a slot receiver that got a lot of action last week when Daniel Jones and company were forced to throw the ball a lot as they struggled to come from behind. Well, the guy that should replace him in the slot, as long as he plays, is Richie James. And I expect that he can take a similar role as Robinson, and we get it just at a ridiculously cheap $5,400 price.
Eric, I still remember the game a couple of years ago when Deebo Samuel got injured and Richie James took over his slot, and he got 16 targets from Jimmy Garoppolo. Now, is he going to get 16 targets this time? Probably not. But he's a guy who can step up and perform. And Eric, what I love is that Dak Prescott at $8,000. I like him because he is a top 5 quarterback. You can't say that about Daniel Jones. And while you can say that about Josh Allen, we get him at nearly 20% cheaper. This guy, Dak Prescott, has averaged 20 fantasy points per game since coming back from his injury. In fact, the last 3 games, he's gotten more than 22 fantasy points per game, or on average, rather. I love this guy. And not only that, but the Giants are pretty middle of the road against the pass defense, so it shouldn't be any problem to be carved up by Dak Prescott.
All right, Gary, at tight end, there's, of course, in the Thanksgiving slate, no Mark Andrews, no Travis Kelce, but I'll tell you a tight end who's approaching that level and at a reasonable price here on FanDuel is TJ Hockenson. Hockenson has really benefit from going from the Detroit Lions to Minnesota. Since he's done that, all he's gotten is 9 targets, 10 targets, and 9 targets. And if you watched the game last week against Dallas, he was targeted twice near the end zone. So and one of which he should have caught, to be honest with you. So I think the touchdowns are going to come with these different targets. And it's obvious to me that Kirk Cousins likes to use him as a safety valve when he gets into trouble.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, if there's one thing that Bill Belichick does very well, it's scheming against the other team's best player. Well, the other team's best player, let's face it, it's Justin Jefferson. So if Justin Jefferson against a pretty darn good set of cornerbacks over there in New England, by the way, you would have to say that it's likely that Justin Jefferson is going to have a lower than average performance. And who's going to have to make up the slack? It's going to have to be TJ Hockenson. It's going to have to be the safety valve. And the thing about the thing about Hockenson is that I really like about him is that he's not just a safety valve. He can run like a wide receiver, but he's got the big body like the tight end. So the linebacking core of the New England Patriots are basically average. They're certainly no better than that. Should be easily exploitable by Hockenson. And man, if you try and put one of those guys or even a slot corner on him in the red zone, forget about it with his big body and body control. So I think it's quite possible that Hockenson can have a really big game. Well worth paying up for. I do want to mention one thing, though. If you need to save money, if the viewer looks at our lineup and says, yes, that's great analysis, but I want to make this change, whatever change that you want to make is going to cost you a little bit of money and you need to save money somewhere. I do also like Dalton Schultz. You get to save $500 versus Hockenson. It's not mitigating Hockenson. I do like Dalton Schultz a lot. But if you take out the first game that he was injured, and just put in the last few games where he was healthy, because he's missed half the season. If you put in the games where A, he's been healthy the whole game, and B, Dak Prescott's been throwing to him, he averages close to 10 fantasy points per game, the same amount of production as Hockenson. In fact, Dalton Schultz is a top 3 tight end if you want to view him along those lines. Now, that's a smaller sample size. You got to be a little careful with that, right? Who's the more trustworthy tight end, given the bigger number of games played? It's got to be Hockenson. But Schultz is in a pretty good situation too, facing a basically middle of the road tight end and pass defense, and you get to save $500. So it's a possibility if you need to save some money to go to Schultz. But I do like Hockenson.
Yeah, both are home favorite tight ends with an implied total of around 23. So both are great. We couldn't really do much with that extra $500, and we slightly liked Hockenson more, so we're going with Hockenson. All right, we have $10,700, Gary, to spend on the flex and defense. Where are we going?
Well, we're certainly not going defense spending money, I'll tell you that, because the volatility is too great. We'll talk about that in a minute. You got to spend your money on flex. And Eric, I think I speak for the entire viewership when I say everybody loves Raymondre. Yes, that joke is good enough. I did it twice. So here's the deal. You look at the flex list and you see a few players that are more expensive than Raymondre, but you don't see any players other than Justin Jefferson that has more fantasy points per game than Ramondre Stevenson. This guy, since week 3, and I'm not trying to cherry pick, it's just that he didn't have the starting running back job in week 1 and week 2. But for the last 2 months of the NFL, since week 3, when he was handed the starting running back job, he has been a top 7 fantasy running back. He averages 18 points a game, and he's so consistent. He's never below, below 12 points per game. And Eric, he's going against, this is a really good situation. Minnesota is 22nd versus the run. In fact, that ranking is going to go down because they were blown out by Dallas. Jesus, anybody who saw that atrocity of a game. Dallas ran all over Minnesota to the tune of 40 points, and now it's New England and Bill Belichick's turn. I just love that. What can I say? Phenomenal opportunity, phenomenal running back. Game script proof because he's so incredible in the passing game. He has one of the most targets of any running back in the NFL. He's literally game script proof, consistent as gravity. Love this guy.
Just one other comment about Stevenson. You talked about that he had to share the role with Damian Harris at the very beginning of the season. Then Harris got hurt, and Stevenson was the lone back when he was out. He did so well that even with Harris back now, it's still Stevenson getting the majority of the carries and being huge in the passing game. So great pick. That leaves us at defense. And, it's the Giants or the Lions, and we're not picking the Lions. So
right. Hashtag analysis.
All right, we'll play a game, Gary. I'll say something positive about the Giants defense, and you say something. We'll alternate, and then we'll see how long we can go. I'll say something. My first thing is make sure I'm true here. Nope, they're not at home. They're only $3,500.
Yes. I'll say something a little bit better than that. Not much, kind of weak, but They are a middle of the road NFL defense in terms of points scored, in terms of yardage against, but they have the second lowest price. So basically, you get a little bit of a value there.
All right. So we did the same analysis of the Thanksgiving slate on DraftKings. That video is on the screen as well. And when available later this week, we are going to do a video on the main slate for Sunday for week 12 on both DraftKings and FanDuel. All links to these videos are in the description. Have a very happy Thanksgiving, and we'll see you next time.